I'm Dan Kaplan. I'm a senior partner at FXCollaborative Architects. We're about a 150-person firm in New York, and we really are a New York firm. When I say New York firm, I mean from the ethos of New York, which is a very vital, intense place. It's you have this wonderful mashup of density and intensity and history and evolution, and it's great because it's growing now, and it also has the challenges of a modern city. So that's really buried in our ethos and in our fiber of our bones. My role in the office is that I really direct the design of the larger projects, more urban projects, whether mostly high rises, but also planning and urban design. In terms of the firm and the evolution and the firm's name and so forth, in one hand, we are a 40-year-old firm, and in another hand, we're a 6-month-old firm, and it's like together. The firm started as Fox and Fowle, two men started it about 40 years ago. It really, again, in New York and Manhattan, really doing high rises, and then the firm evolved over the years, and partners come and partners go, and we are in the second and third generation now of the firm, and then it went to FXCollaborative. As it changed in about 2 decades ago. And then we really felt it was very important to not only acknowledge, but to celebrate the way we work and the promise we make with clients. And instead of having it after one person's name, that we would create a FX Collaborative.
I'm Sylvia Smith, senior partner at FXCollaborative. I came to New York many years ago and wanted to work in an up-and-coming firm. I wanted to be part of something. I found a very young firm, Fox and Fowle. It has morphed over the years and is now FXCollaborative. I'm happy to say that I've played a meaningful part in the firm, but it also has been a meaningful part in my life. I realized that my focus, my passion was program-driven institutional projects. So in 1996, I proposed to the founding partners that we establish a studio for cultural and educational projects. We now have a group of 50 people who are equally passionate about that kind of work. It's not a silo. We don't have specialists, but we have a group of very talented designers and architects who love to place themselves in the client's shoes and understand their mission, their goals. Many times our clients are only building one project. It needs to work for them. It needs to express who they are. It needs to be theirs. Our recent discussion or renaming of the firm at our 40th anniversary, that we established a very meaningful vision statement, mission statement that I think has an ethical base to it, that we believe that architecture that's intelligent and rational, intuitive, meaning poetic and artistic and innovative, will in fact allow us to build for the long term and build in a meaningful way.
Architecture, on one hand, is so personal and so intuitive. On the other hand, it takes a village, to make a building. And the mythology of the singular hand that drives everything is really, I think, the state of the art of the 19th century. H.H. Richardson and Frank Lloyd Wright in this country and others in Europe really established this. And I think one of the most tragic things to happen to architecture is Ayn Rand publishing The Fountainhead. And, it was all about the individual's vision against society and culture. And, really when you see how things are done and how really you get the most innovative work and the most best crafted work is through an intense collaboration within the office and a collaboration with our allied professionals of engineers and landscape architects and craftsmen, and of course with the clients and the public, which we also see as a client.
We really believe in the power of the intellect and intuition, and also interconnectivity in how we do our work. So by intellect, I mean that we come to projects with a certain amount of expertise and knowledge about what we're doing based on our past experience. By intuition, I mean that we also bring instinct and our gut, sort of what we think works in a certain circumstance. It's not always, a fixed solution that's kind of scientific, but there's an intuitive nature to it. And then we also talk about interconnectivity having to do with working with other people, being very collaborative with all of the people that make up a project team, whether it's the client, engineers, consultants, everybody else that it takes to get a project done. And we are committed to that and ultimately making a better world as a result of that.
I firmly believe that construction needs to be disrupted as well. And I think one of the main reasons I think it will, and it's so imperative, is from an equity point of view. Cities are an engine for innovation and equity and people bettering their lives. And right now we have a crisis in cities of affordability. And there are now becoming, especially in this country, central cities are becoming enclaves of wealthy. And they're no longer as providing that sort of staircase up to prosperity and sort of self-realization. So I think the more we can build in an excellent way and in a less expensive way and bring those gains to the populace, the better we're all going to be.
I'm the design director for the interiors practice at FXCollaborative. We have an integrated approach here in terms of how we look at things a little bit differently. We reframe the problem, usually, with the architects across the table and beside us, our colleagues. Our inspiration is really from the emotional experience of how you first enter the building, what you're seeing and smelling and hearing, and kind of understanding that approach on a more small intimate scale. It's completely different sometimes than the big city scale, obviously. We're also right now talking about a lot of new paradigm shifts with all the technology that everybody has to deal with, the sustainability that is really kind of the most important thing that we can address in the world, and how that is really accessible to everybody, because there's this notion of democratic design, not meaning like everybody puts their ideas into a pot and it becomes like a big giant stew and essentially mush. But it's really about having accessibility to everybody, not just the top 1% and the bottom 1%, where we tend to design primarily for those two groups, where it's very expensive to have a sustainable kind of conscientious space or building. That's not right. I think what we're trying to do is, especially with interior design, trying to figure out how to get it on each project, no matter what. On our buildings also, I know that Dan and our groups over there are talking about how to make it have a bigger impact, faster, bigger, having all the sustainability measures baked into building codes, for instance.
One Willoughby Square or one WSQ. It's on a very prominent site in downtown Brooklyn, as of course Brooklyn has become a worldwide brand that represents creativity and youth and experimentation and a way of living in the city and so forth. The first thing we did was we pulled the core away from the loft. I call it the loft. It's just a clean, open space. No columns, beautiful concrete beams, wonderful expression, 60 feet, 19-meter free span by 180 feet long, 60-meter free span, open plate. No columns, no core, no. That's the loft. Then there was the core, the elevators. This is a 50,000 square meter building, lots of people. There's 8 elevators and the toilet rooms and mechanical rooms. That's on the side. And then in between, so we pulled the two apart, is what I call the bridge, which is where you go between the two, double height window overlooking the park, and it's sort of a breath of air before you go into the work. What we decided to do was to do more of a opaque facade, more solid portions. So instead of the glass going floor to the ceiling, there's a sill that goes around, which is very useful for office space and for people so they can get closer to the window. It also cut down on the amount of glazing. It allowed us to insulate more. And then we clad that and the structure with a blue glazed brick that has a pleated form. And we looked at the beautiful, wonderful Art Deco structures around the project, and they have this wonderful pleating. So we took that and we sort of did it and we sampled it sideways and created shadow, light. The reflective or the glazed blue brick creates a dialogue with the sky. Having these discussions with the client, and my thesis is about office space and about where offices are going. So everybody wants an architect's office. They all want a loft. They all want the New York loft feeling, right? They all want the wide open space, the high ceilings, the glazing, people close together, the social spaces. And as we were talking to the client, and they were like, well, who are these creatives? Who are the people who are attracted? We said, well, it's like our office. It's like us. And then I started thinking, oh, well, we could be the tenant here, And it started becoming a confluence of design and designing our own home and designing for people like us. And the more and more that we thought about it, the more it made sense. So we had a year-long discussion with the developer and the client, who was wonderful. And we are taking 3 floors, one of the super floors with a very long, large terrace, higher ceilings. That'll become our workshop and model shop and meeting spaces and social spaces. I think we're putting the accounting department there. I don't know why, but that's good for them. And then you go up the stairs on the bridge, and there are 2 floors of real workhorse loft, but also, of course, with a lot of more micro-scaled social spaces integrated.
So for our own office space that we're doing in Brooklyn, in about 2.5 years, we're trying to figure out how to celebrate what we do here, in a physical manifestation. So it's not just pretty fabrics and carpet and beautiful artwork. It's really about understanding how we work, because I think our collaborative process needs to be really obvious. When we look at our process for the project in Brooklyn, for our new object, we want it to look and function like a design lab. It's not just about us, actually. We want to bring together really critical key players in the manufacturing industry that can start to influence and inspire each other to make a difference, change their manufacturing processes. Our space is really meant to do that. We want it to feel like a think lab, not just a design lab. We want to really push an aspirational level of design, meaning it's got some social impact. We're trying to change the world in many ways, and we feel that responsibility very deeply in our DNA here.
Project brief asked for a building that would draw people to it, that would have its own presence, even though it's on an island with the most iconic figure in the world, the Statue of Liberty. Be a building that is fitting, be a building that would sustain the challenges of being on an island surrounded by water. The faceting of the building responds to the edge of the island. The front of the building responds to the axial nature of the terrace. Our hope, however, is that this configuration will create a welcoming entry that anyone of any language would understand where to come in, experience the story of liberty and the story of the statue, and arrive with the actual original torch.
Circa Central Park. We tend to think of New York City as a grid, and tall and not so green. But so here we have this project. It's more like London or Boston or maybe Barcelona. It's not tall. And it faces Central Park. It's on the northwest corner of Central Park. It also has this amazing nexus between the Upper West Side, Central Park, Harlem, Morningside Heights. So it really was a hole in the donut. There are these arcs, these white arcs that really form the 1/4 of this very famous circle. The arcs progressively both stepped up and got softer, so it had more of a south orientation. we thought a lot, tested a lot of alternatives in terms of sun shading, and came up with a combination of vertical blades and horizontal sunshades that would passively shade, or that would self-shade the building, so that you wouldn't need active shades that would take away from the view. So that always, even in a very, very sunny day, you could have the view out to the park. And we looked at optimizing both the glare control, but also the view to the south, and came up with this beautiful pattern as a byproduct. You know, the arc geometry as the sun moves around, you can really trace with the sunshades. And then we have these fins, and the idea with the fins was that we wanted to make a more direct connection to the city. So we put two different colors on each side of the fin. So the side, when you're at the city side, looking at the park, the fin is sort of a brick color. So you have all this sort of orange, red brick color of fins going around. And then when you're in the park and you're looking back to the city, it's like a green that you would see in the early spring, like a sort of celery green, we call it. And you see a bunch of those fins, and it's the deep green. So that we played with this idea of color and context and solar control.
The firm has always looked to do work overseas, but I would say about 10 or 12 years ago, we really pushed a little harder to try to develop our overseas work for a couple of reasons. Number one, we saw work, international work, as an opportunity to kind of flex our design muscles a little bit. In New York, it was almost as if people knew us too well, and so we didn't always get to do as progressive a design solution as we might like. So by going further afield and working in the Middle East or China or Africa or South America, we found that those clients were a little more open to some new ideas and trying to do some things differently. It also brought our sustainable design into play, because those countries and other places in the world were all very interested in green design and sustainable architecture. So we were able to bring that expertise to those parts of the world as well. And what has happened as a result of doing that work overseas is that those projects, as they've been completed, have gotten some recognition, and now we're able to kind of leverage that experience back here in the United States as well.
Entered a competition for an international competition for a campus in Western Nairobi. We entered this competition with a friend of mine, Frederick Schwartz, his small office. He loved doing competitions. I love working on campuses, and also have spent a lot of time in Africa, so we thought with that combination we could pursue this international competition. Probably one of the most meaningful projects I've ever experienced, not just because of the program and the architecture, but also being welcomed into a community, a very special community of people very different from our own. The client was a group called the Dawoodi Bohras, a Shia Muslim group that's based in India. They have these Quranic academies in Pakistan, India, and Africa. The excitement of the program was that it would encompass sacred buildings, academic buildings, and residential buildings. So it was 18 structures. and located in a beautiful site in the Karen district of Nairobi. What made this particularly special was this notion of interconnectedness. This is a very forward-looking group. Their program was to create a school for 500 girls and 500 boys, that they would be here for 11 years of their life. The Boras come from the Fatima tradition, so while they wanted a very forward-looking and advanced place of learning, they wanted the feeling of the campus to tie into their heritage, which goes back to the Fatimids in Cairo. So they actually took us to Cairo to visit some of their very significant sites. We like to think of this as the campus in the garden and the garden in the campus.
Sustainability is, sometimes it's seen as very much of a technical thing where, there's certain performance and you're checking a box, but much more deeply, it's about people's relationship to their place as well and to their climate. And if you really, really drill down, the origin of culture is really related to climate. So these two things, culture and climate, to us, we're always thinking about it. So one project that we really, I think really crystallized this for us was our project in Istanbul for Allianz. And we started thinking about other landforms and other forms in that part of the world, and there's Cappadocia with its truncated pyramid shapes. There's the beautiful minarets. There's really a love of geometry. So we started taking the solar angles of the site and slicing away at it. And then really, again, this is where culture and climate came together for us. And there's the great, Ottoman and Islamic tradition of the Mush Arabia, which are the screens. And they screen sunlight and they create a little privacy. And our aspirations for this building was very ambitious from a sustainability point of view. It's the first tower in Turkey to achieve LEED Platinum status.
Is that heavy?
And two, what it did was it created this amazing, that's okay.
Don't go back. Don't go back. Don't leave back.
No, like, no minute.